Maya, a determined young entrepreneur, thought she was just another face in the corporate world until a chance encounter at a luxury dealership shattered her world. Humiliated by the elites who ridiculed her, she swept into a secretive world of unimaginable power and dark influence, led by the enigmatic and dangerous Elijah. Offered wealth, control, and an empire, Maya is drawn into a web of betrayal, surveillance, and corruption that threatens to consume her. As she uncovers the hidden truths behind a global network of power brokers, Maya must decide, take everything or escape before it destroys her. In a shocking twist, she does something no one could have predicted. Before we dive back in, drop a comment below and let us know where you're tuning in from. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I've got a surprise coming tomorrow that you won't want to miss. The mystery deepens. It was a bright, sunny afternoon in the heart of the city, the kind of day where the streets gleamed with prosperity. Lux Auto Motors, the most prestigious luxury dealership in town, stood tall, its glistening glass windows reflecting the sleek, shiny machines inside. The latest Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Rolls-Royces adorned the showroom, a monument to opulence. And then there was Maya. She walked up the steps of Lux Auto Motors with the grace of someone who belonged to this world. But there was something else about her. Her confidence wasn't born from her wealth nor from her status, but from something deeper. It was the kind of confidence that only a person who had faced struggles and triumphs could possess. Maya was a 24-year-old woman, recently promoted to head of marketing at a thriving tech startup. She had earned everything she had, and she knew her worth. But her wealth wasn't the reason she was here today. Maya had always dreamed of owning a car that reflected the success she had fought so hard for, something that represented her rise against all odds. She stepped into the dealership, where the cool, polished floors met her heels. She was ready to make her dream come true. But as soon as she entered, she was met with an immediate and uncomfortable silence. The staff seemed to freeze, their eyes scanning her from head to toe. There was no warmth, no welcome. The manager, a tall, thin man in his late 40s named Greg, looked at her with barely concealed disdain. "Can I help you, miss?" Greg asked, his voice dripping with condescension. "I'm interested in purchasing a car," Maya replied, her tone unwavering yet cool. She smiled, but it was clear she had already sensed the dissonance in the air. "Specifically, I'm interested in a Range Rover or maybe a Porsche." Greg's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he motioned to a young saleswoman named Emma, who had been standing off to the side, eyes wide, obviously uncomfortable. Maya couldn't help but notice how Emma's eyes lingered on her with curiosity, perhaps wondering if Maya was really there to buy, or just someone out of place in a world of high-end luxury. Emma approached with a tight smile, the kind that felt rehearsed. "Right this way, miss," she said, almost too cheerfully. But as Maya was led toward the luxurious Range Rovers, Greg, the manager, suddenly interjected. "I'll be honest with you, miss, our cars are a bit much for someone with your, well, budget." He didn't even try to hide the judgment in his voice. Maya's heart sank. It wasn't the first time she had encountered this kind of prejudice. She had been passed over in meetings, underestimated in her career, and even turned away from other stores. But this was something else entirely. Emma quickly guided her to a few more cars, trying to smooth over the awkwardness, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling of humiliation creeping in. Greg's insinuation wasn't just about her bank account. It was about her being black, being a woman, being something they didn't expect to walk through their door. As she glanced at the sleek, shining machines, she felt like she was being suffocated by the subtle racism laced into every interaction. It wasn't the car she had imagined herself buying. It wasn't the way she had envisioned this moment of triumph. It was something worse. Before Maya could say anything more, Greg returned, his lips curling into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable with something more affordable," he said, his words thinly veiled with mock kindness. "We have a used Toyota in the back. It's more in line with your price range." Maya froze. The humiliation hit her like a punch to the gut. The worst part was that she wasn't shocked. She had learned to expect these moments, but that didn't make them any easier to bear. As Maya turned to leave, determined not to show just how deeply the humiliation cut, she received a call. It was from her best friend, Lila. "Maya, you wouldn't believe this," Lila said, her voice urgent. "Someone just pulled up in front of your apartment building, and it's the car. The car you've always wanted, a white Rolls-Royce with a huge bow on top." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She stepped outside the dealership, glancing at her phone. "What are you talking about, Lila? A Rolls-Royce? There's no way. I'm still here." But Lila insisted. "No, seriously, it's right there. The driver's already unloading it. It's got your name on it." Confused, Maya felt a mix of disbelief and curiosity. She had no idea who would send her such an extravagant gift. She quickly walked toward the parking lot, hoping to confirm if this was some sort of prank. When she arrived at her apartment building, she was met with the surreal sight of the Rolls-Royce sitting outside. The car gleamed under the sunlight, its pristine white finish almost blinding. And there, standing beside it, was a man in a suit, holding a bouquet of roses and a small card. "Miss Maya Carter?" he asked, his voice polite but firm. Yes?" Maya said, her voice shaking with confusion. The man handed her the card. Maya opened it quickly, her hands trembling. The words inside read, "For the woman who knows her worth, a symbol of your success and resilience, from someone who knows exactly what it feels like to be underestimated." She looked up, stunned, and the man smiled. "It's all paid for, Miss Carter. Enjoy your new car. It's yours." Before Maya could ask another question, the man disappeared into the shadows, leaving her alone with the Rolls-Royce. Her mouth went dry. The car wasn't just a luxury, it was a statement. But who would give her something like this? A Rolls-Royce was, after all, more than just a car. It was a symbol of power, of wealth, and of defying the odds. The woman who had walked into Lux Auto Motors only hours ago, humiliated and looked down upon, was now the proud owner of a car that represented everything she had fought for, and more. But the mystery of who had gifted her this car still loomed. Maya was left standing in front of her apartment building, her head spinning, her mind racing with questions. Who had done this? Why? What did this mean for her future? And more importantly, who had been watching her all along? Maya sat behind the wheel of the Rolls-Royce, her fingers trembling as she gripped the leather steering wheel. The engine purred with a smoothness that only wealth could buy. It was surreal. The car, a symbol of triumph, felt like a dream that had somehow come true in the most unexpected, almost bizarre way. The mystery of the car gnawed at her. Who was behind this? Who had sent her such an extravagant gift? As she sat there, her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered hesitantly, wondering if this was some kind of prank. "Miss Thompson, I hope you're enjoying the car," the voice on the other end said, smooth and calm, yet carrying an undercurrent of something Maya couldn't quite place, something familiar. "Who is this?" Maya asked, her heart racing. "How do you know my name?" The voice chuckled softly. "Let's just say I've been keeping an eye on you. I've seen your rise, your struggles, your resilience." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. This was no ordinary call. She didn't recognize the voice, but there was something unsettlingly familiar about it. It was almost like the person had been watching her for a long time. "Why?" she asked, her voice shaking with a mixture of fear and intrigue. "Why give me a Rolls Royce?" The voice paused for a moment before answering, "Because you're worth it. You deserve to know that someone believes in you, someone who understands what it's like to fight for every inch. Don't worry, Maya. This is just the beginning." The line went dead before she could respond. Maya sat there in stunned silence, her mind racing. Who could possibly know her so well? Who had watched her struggles and decided to give her a car worth more than most people's entire life savings? She had so many questions, but no answers. The only thing she was certain of was that this mysterious person had access to her life in ways that made her feel vulnerable, exposed. The next day, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Everywhere she went, she felt eyes on her, as if the entire city was part of some grand, unfolding story. It was unnerving. Even the most mundane moments, like picking up coffee at her favorite cafe or walking down the street, felt like they were being observed. She had returned to Lux Auto Motors earlier that morning, but Greg and the other salespeople were nowhere to be found. The dealership was strangely quiet, the air heavy with a sense of anticipation. Maya walked in with determination, ready to confront them, to demand answers. Greg, as usual, was the first to greet her. But today, there was something different about him. His demeanor had shifted from condescending to nervous. "Miss Thompson, it's good to see you again," he said, his voice shaky. Maya didn't beat around the bush. "You owe me an explanation," she said, her eyes narrowing. "How could you treat me like that yesterday? You assumed I couldn't afford the cars I was interested in. You humiliated me, Greg." Greg's eyes flickered nervously. I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice too smooth, too rehearsed. "We've always been happy to assist." "No," Maya interrupted. "You don't get to play that game. I want to know who made the call, who gave me that car." Greg's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He seemed paralyzed, his usual confidence completely gone. Maya's frustration boiled over. "Who did this? Who is this person?" Greg finally managed to speak, but his voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know. I can't say. It's someone who's been watching you, someone with resources, someone who's made it clear they don't want to be found." Maya stared at him, disbelief washing over her. "That's it? That's all you have to say?" He nodded slowly, his eyes darting around the room as if the walls themselves were closing in on him. Just as Maya turned to leave, a familiar voice echoed from behind her. It was the same voice from the phone call. "Maya," it said, slow and deliberate. She froze, her body tensing. Turning around, she saw a man step out from behind a curtain in the far corner of the dealership. His face was hidden by the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat, but there was no mistaking the familiar posture, the deliberate, confident steps. "Who are you?" Maya asked, her voice trembling now. The man stepped into the light, revealing a pair of dark sunglasses that hid his eyes. He was tall, well-dressed, and exuded an air of power that seemed almost supernatural. "My name is Elijah," he said, his voice calm, like a smooth river flowing beneath a dangerous current. "And I've been watching you, Maya, watching everything you've done, everything you've fought for." Maya's heart skipped a beat. "Elijah?" she whispered, recognizing the name instantly. Elijah, a man from her past, someone she thought she'd never see again. Someone who had disappeared without a trace years ago, leaving behind nothing but memories and unanswered questions. "You," she said, her voice barely a whisper. How? How could you?" Elijah smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was one filled with mystery and hidden intent. "I told you, Maya, this is just the beginning." Before she could react, he turned and walked toward the back of the dealership, his steps echoing in the empty room. Maya was left standing in the midst of this whirlwind, unable to process what was happening. She had gone from feeling humiliated to being given a gift she could never have imagined. And now, Elijah, the man from her past, had returned, bringing with him more secrets than Maya could fathom. As she stood there, trying to make sense of it all, one thing became clear. The Rolls-Royce was only the first piece of a much larger puzzle, and the game was only beginning. Maya's mind raced as she followed Elijah through the dealership's back corridors. His presence was like a storm that had come out of nowhere, leaving her dizzy with questions and uncertainty. Who was he really? Why had he disappeared all those years ago? Elijah opened a door, revealing a hidden office that looked nothing like the showroom outside. The walls were lined with monitors, each displaying different parts of the city. Security cameras from various buildings, streets, even private homes. "What is this?" Maya asked, her voice a mixture of fear and disbelief. Elijah didn't answer immediately. Instead, he motioned for her to sit. As she did, he began to speak, his voice low and steady. "You see, Maya, I've been tracking people like you for a long time. People who have the potential to change things. You, your rise in the tech world, your ability to break through the barriers that others put up. Those things caught my attention." Maya's chest tightened. "You've been watching me? For how long?" "Years," Elijah said simply. "And now I'm ready to offer you something more than a car." The words hung in the air like a threat, and Maya could feel the weight of them, the dark undertones that seemed to promise something more dangerous than anything she had anticipated. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Elijah leaned forward, his eyes hidden behind the sunglasses. "I want you to join me. I want you to take the next step in your journey, but it comes with a price that no one will see coming." Maya's mind raced. What was he talking about? What price? And more importantly, why her? She could feel the walls of the dealership closing in on her, her pulse quickening as the pieces of this twisted puzzle began to shift in place. But one thing was certain. Elijah wasn't here to offer her just a Rolls-Royce. He was offering her a path into something far darker, something more powerful than she could have ever imagined. And she was about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went. Maya stared at Elijah, her mind racing. The room was too quiet, the weight of his words heavy in the air. She had come in seeking answers, but now she was caught in the web of a world she had never even imagined. This wasn't about a Rolls Royce. It was about something far larger, more dangerous. "You want me to join you?" Maya repeated, her voice trembling despite herself. What does that even mean? Elijah's lips curled into a cold smile, and for the first time he removed his sunglasses, revealing his dark eyes, which gleamed with a dangerous intelligence. "It means I want you to stop playing small, Maya. I want you to be part of something bigger, something extraordinary." She felt a shiver run through her spine. There was a promise in his words, an alluring yet terrifying promise. What did he mean by extraordinary? "I don't understand," she said, shaking her head. "I've worked hard for everything I've achieved. I don't need someone's help to—" "To what?" Elijah interrupted, his voice like a whip. "To keep running your little tech company and let the world forget about you in the noise of all the other businesses? No, Maya. You have potential and you're wasting it. I'm offering you a chance to reshape your future, to build something no one could ever take from you. But it's not free." Maya's pulse quickened. She didn't know what this man was playing at, but every fiber of her being screamed to back away. Yet she couldn't ignore the strange pull, the temptation of power, of control over her own life in a way she never thought possible. "What price are you talking about?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. Elijah leaned forward, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. "The price, Maya, is your soul. It's your morality, your conscience. Because once you enter this world, there's no going back. You'll have to make choices, hard choices. Ethical lines will blur. But at the end, you'll have more power than you've ever dreamed of." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the weight of his words like a thunderstorm approaching, but she didn't want to admit that part of her was intrigued. "I need time to think," she said, standing up abruptly, trying to break free from the overwhelming pressure Elijah had placed on her. Elijah didn't stop her. "Take all the time you need, but remember, Maya, the opportunity is fleeting. It's waiting for you until it isn't." As she stepped out of the office, her mind was spinning. What had she just gotten herself into? She had always dreamed of making a real impact in the world. But this was beyond anything she could have anticipated. Was it possible to have both power and integrity? Or was Elijah right? Was she going to have to choose between one and the other? Maya didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Elijah's face, his eyes like two burning coals staring straight into her soul. His words echoed in her mind over and over again. "Once you enter this world, there's no going back." The next morning, she found herself standing in front of her apartment building, staring at the Rolls Royce that had suddenly appeared in her life. The car was a symbol of success, yes, but now it felt like an anchor, something heavy, weighing her down. Suddenly, a figure approached from the shadows. Maya's heart skipped a beat. It was the same driver who had delivered the car. He wasn't alone. Two men in dark suits flanked him, and they moved with a precision that made Maya's skin crawl. The driver handed her an envelope. No words were exchanged, just the envelope, with no return address, no sign of who had sent it. "What's this?" Maya asked, her voice trembling. "Your invitation," the driver said, his voice flat. "The meeting is tonight. Be there." Without waiting for a response, He and his companions turned and walked away as silently as they had come. Maya stared at the envelope, her hand shaking. This was no ordinary invitation. She could feel the weight of it, like it was a ticket to something she wasn't ready for, but could no longer ignore. That night, Maya found herself standing in front of a sleek, modern building in downtown Atlanta, far from the luxury of Lux Auto Motors. The building looked like a fortress, cold, imposing, and starkly modern. As she approached the entrance, she felt a rush of adrenaline. Every instinct told her to turn around, to leave before it was too late. But she couldn't. The door opened without a sound, and she stepped inside. The lobby was empty, but she could feel the presence of people watching her, hidden in the shadows. She was led down a long corridor, each step echoing louder than the last. The further she went, the more the air seemed to thicken, the tension palpable. At the end of the hallway, a door opened to a private boardroom. Inside, a group of men and women sat at a long, polished table. Elijah was already there, his face unreadable. "Welcome, Maya," he said, his voice cool and calculating. "Please have a seat." She hesitated but sat down. As she looked around the table, she realized that she recognized a few of the faces, wealthy business magnates, political figures, even some celebrities. All of them were here, sitting in this room, waiting for her. "Who are you people?" Maya asked, her voice filled with disbelief. "What is this?" Elijah smiled. "You're looking at the true power brokers of the city, Maya. The ones who make things happen behind the scenes. The ones who pull the strings unseen, unnoticed. Welcome to the club." A chill ran down Maya's spine. These people weren't just wealthy. They controlled everything, every business, every deal, every law. They were untouchable. "Why me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You've already proven that you're capable," Elijah said. "You've built something on your own. But now we're offering you the chance to build something far bigger, something that will change the world." The room fell silent as Elijah's words hung in the air. And in that silence, Maya knew there was no turning back. Days passed in a blur. Maya was caught in a whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and offers that she could barely comprehend. Elijah's group wasn't just about wealth. It was about influence, about power that stretched across the globe. They promised her anything: unlimited wealth, control over entire industries, even political power. The price was simple: her loyalty. But as the days dragged on, Maya started to feel something she hadn't expected: doubt. There was something unsettling about the group. They were too perfect, too calculated. She had seen the way they manipulated situations, how they pulled strings behind closed doors. But most of all, she saw the emptiness in their eyes, the coldness that came with power. One evening, as she was leaving one of their meetings, she received a text from Lila. "Maya, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think they're watching you." Maya froze. She had known there was something off about the group, but now it was too real. She had to make a choice: stay in this dangerous game and rise to the top, or walk away before it consumed her. That night, as she sat alone in the Rolls-Royce, staring out the window at the city that had become a prison, she made her decision. Maya stood at the edge of the balcony, looking down at the lights of the city. It had all led to this moment. She was torn between the life she had always wanted and the life she had built with her own hands. Elijah had given her everything, but it came with a price: her soul. As she looked out into the darkness, she knew what she had to do. She couldn't allow herself to become like them, cold, heartless, untouchable. There was power, yes, but at what cost? The door behind her opened, and Elijah stepped out, his eyes dark with the knowledge of what she was about to do. "Maya," he said softly, "you know there's no way out of this. Once you cross this line, there's no going back." Maya turned to face him, a fire in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Maybe there's more to life than just power, Elijah. Maybe it's time I find out what that is." Elijah's expression darkened, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. "Then you've made your choice," he said, his voice icy. As he turned to leave, Maya watched him walk away, and for the first time in her life, she felt free. Maya thought she had escaped, but as the days wore on, she began to realize that the world she had stepped into wasn't something you could simply walk away from. Elijah's group wasn't just a group of power brokers, they were a machine, an unstoppable, all-encompassing force with tendrils that reached into every corner of her life. It started with subtle things: a misplaced document, a phone call that wasn't meant for her ears, a shadow that lingered just a little too long outside her apartment. But the more she tried to ignore it, the more apparent it became that they were still watching her. One morning, she found a strange package waiting for her at the doorstep of her new apartment. There was no return address, just her name written in elegant, almost chilling handwriting on the front. She ripped open the box with trembling hands. Inside was a small, old-fashioned key. There was no note, no explanation. She stood frozen, holding the key, feeling a growing sense of dread. She knew this wasn't an accident. They were sending a message, but what was it, and why her? The next day, she received another call from an unknown number. Her heart skipped as she answered. "Maya?" The voice on the other end was smooth, familiar, but distant. "I see you found the key." Her blood ran cold. It was Elijah. "I'm giving you a choice, Maya," Elijah continued, his voice calm but laced with menace. "You can keep running. You can hide, but you'll never be free. You've made the mistake of thinking that you can escape, but the truth is, you're already one of us now, and you'll either play by our rules or you'll be silenced. Consider this your warning." The line went dead. Maya spent the next few days in a whirlwind of fear and uncertainty. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. Everywhere she went, she felt eyes on her, like someone or something was always lurking just beyond her sight. Her phone buzzed again, breaking the silence of her apartment. This time, it was a text message from an unknown number. The key opens the door, but what lies behind it could be your salvation or your downfall. The message was cryptic, and yet something in her gut told her it was meant for her. She tried to push it away. She tried to convince herself it was just a prank, but deep down, she knew better. That night, Maya found herself at the address that had been in the message, a dilapidated, crumbling building in the heart of the city. It looked abandoned, the windows boarded up, the door locked, but something about it felt wrong. A dark energy hung in the air. With trembling hands, she inserted the key into the old lock. The door creaked open, revealing a hallway that smelled of mildew and decay. She stepped inside, her heart pounding in her chest. The walls were covered in maps, files, and photographs. It was a control room, a place where secrets were kept, where plans were made. Maya's eyes widened as she noticed a familiar face among the photos on the wall. It was Elijah. But there were others too. Politicians, CEOs, military leaders, judges, people who had the power to shape the world in their hands. Maya realized she wasn't just dealing with a group of businessmen. This was an entire network, a dark web of influence that stretched across the globe. And now, she was a part of it. The deeper Maya went, the more she discovered. She uncovered files detailing the group's dealings, dirty deals with corrupt governments, bribes to high-ranking officials, corporate sabotage, and worse. The more she learned, the more she understood the true nature of the beast she had become involved with. But there was something else, something more terrifying. She stumbled upon a series of surveillance videos showing various people from her past, her friends, her colleagues, even her family, being watched. Some were followed from a distance, others were shown in intimate, private moments. And then she saw herself. There was a video of her in her apartment, sitting at her desk, reading through papers. The footage was so clear, so precise, that it sent a shiver down her spine. They had been watching her for a long time. They knew everything about her, every move, every decision, every thought. She was nothing more than a pawn in their game. And it was then that she realized they weren't just watching her, they were hunting her. Maya's phone rang again, and this time it wasn't Elijah. It was someone she never thought she'd hear from again. Greg. "Maya," he said, his voice shaking, I have to warn you. You're in too deep. You don't know what you're dealing with. They've been watching you. I've seen the files. You're on their radar." Her heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I didn't want to get involved, but they've already taken control of everything. Your company, your assets. You think you can escape them, but you can't. They have eyes everywhere. You can't outrun them." Maya's pulse quickened. "What do you want from me?" Greg hesitated. "I'm sending you a safe house address. It's the only place you'll be safe. You need to disappear." But just as he spoke, there was a loud crash from the other end of the line, the sound of a struggle, a muffled scream, and then nothing. Maya's blood ran cold. Maya was on the run now. There was no turning back. She had to go to the safe house Greg had sent her, but she didn't know if she could trust it. She didn't know if Greg was alive, if he had betrayed her, or if this was all part of the game Elijah had set in motion. She packed her things quickly, grabbed her phone, and ran out the door, heading to the last place she thought would offer refuge, a forgotten warehouse on the outskirts of town. As she drove, her phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. "You can run, but we will always find you." Her heart pounded as she looked in the rearview mirror. For the first time in her life, she saw a black SUV following her. She pressed the accelerator harder, her hands gripping the wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She didn't make it to the warehouse. The black SUV cut her off before she could reach her destination, blocking the road. 3 men in black suits stepped out of the vehicle, their faces hidden behind dark sunglasses. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She had no choice now. She was trapped. "Get out of the car, Maya," one of them ordered. His voice was cold, devoid of emotion. She hesitated, but there was no escape. Slowly, she opened the door and stepped out, her legs shaking beneath her. Elijah emerged from the shadows, his face a mask of determination. "You thought you could run, didn't you?" he asked, his tone almost sympathetic. "You never really had a choice." Maya's heart hammered in her chest. "What do you want from me?" Elijah smiled, a thin, cruel smile. I'm giving you one final choice, Maya. You can join us, truly become one of us, or you can disappear. You'll never be heard from again. No one will know you existed. Maya stared at him, her mind racing. The thought of joining him, of becoming a part of this dark, twisted network, sent a shiver down her spine. But the alternative was worse. Maya was led into a darkened room, her mind racing with everything she had seen and heard. The walls were lined with computers, monitors flashing with activity. The room hummed with the power of an entire empire, a world that was controlled by fear, manipulation, and absolute power. Elijah stood in front of her, his face unreadable. You're at the crossroads now, Maya. Your choice. You can take the power we're offering you. You'll have everything, money, influence, the world at your feet. Or you can choose to leave it all behind. But understand this, there's no going back. Once you leave, you'll never be safe. The weight of his words crushed her, but she knew deep down that she had only one choice left. Maya made her decision. She had already crossed too many lines, had seen too much to ever truly go back. The power Elijah offered was intoxicating, like a drug that burned through her veins. As she took the step into this new life, she realized one painful truth. She wasn't the same person anymore, and the world she had once hoped to change was already changing her.